always consider myself having a great face for radio.
You remember, I forget the guy's name. He was a Chicago radio announcer who did the rest of the story.
Oh, yeah.
Paul
Not
Harvey?
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have a segment where you and I dig out some dirt and we go, and here's the rest of the story.
Man, I think that was a pretty good pull on my part, Paul Harvey. That's a tough one.
I think it was a tie, though. All truth be told,
Yeah.
I think we both came at it at the same time.
Yeah, we got it.
But
I
you
think-
have an age advantage. I'm surprised he even knows who the fuck I'm talking about.
I mean, I grew up in a house where in the mornings my parents would play the radio. I mean, that's,
So that's how you knew him.
yeah, nobody does that
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, so I always spent a lot of time in Greece, right? And so we would listen to the Armed Forces radio, and so they would rebroadcast or broadcast a lot of the American shows, and they were all old radio programs or whatever. It was great because all of these things were coming out to people who had no they were living abroad. They didn't have a lot of contact with current stuff in the U.S., but they were rebroadcasting old stuff in the U.S., making people feel like they were back home and all. It was great. And I used to listen to Paul Harvey all the time there too. It was cool.
So you lived in Greece?
I lived in Greece, yeah. So I guess I had a little bit of a checkered life back then. So I grew up in the garden spot of the world, Brooklyn, New York.
All right.
So when I was we were talking about ankylosing spondylitis and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I had this arthritic kind of a condition at a very young age, and I ended up not being able to go to school. I had sort of a lot of homeschool stuff and whatever. So, but as a result, it kind of really did a number on my outlook in life. You ended up being frustrated and bitter, and everyone's playing basketball and you're sitting at home, watching TV, and we didn't even have remotes back then. It was it was a problem. Your dad had to pick you up and take you to the bathroom so you can go. It was like that kind of stuff because I really couldn't walk. It was really bad. As a result of my my bitterness, I guess I sort of, when I went back to school, I was not actually the best student in the world, and probably hung out with people that perhaps are not exactly pillars of society.
Okay.
And would get into trouble quite a bit. And my father was an immigrant from Greece. Both my parents were not educated people, working class people, whatever. But and all, if you know anything about Europeans and Greeks, when they leave their country to go somewhere else to earn some money and earn a living and do whatever, they do it. Their mindset is that I'm going to make enough money so that I can go back to the old country. And so that was his thought. Now, my situation sort of accelerated that thought a little bit because I wasn't doing well in school. I was hanging out with the wrong people. I was kind of getting in trouble, whatever. So he decided that I'm going to send this kid to Greece to go to school because I don't think I like this trajectory.
How old were you when he sent you?
I was actually a junior in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So after 10th grade, that summer, instead of going...
Hold on. You're glossing over the exciting part. What were you getting into?
Do I have to answer that?
Was there a straw that broke the camel's back?
Well, so... a lot of my friends' last names ended in a vowel. And the Italian guys...
You were Henry. He was Henry.
Henry Hill.
Except he wasn't Irish. He was the Greek.
But these guys, they were like the best guys in the world. They were so cool. They dressed when no one else dressed nicely, they dressed nicely.
Mm-hmm.
They had, they had the little hats that they wore, and the little, the little wide, collars, and that,
This is
the
the
pop-
70s, right?
Yeah, in the 70s.
Did
and,
they drive cool cars?
They only drove two. There were only two kinds of cars that they would drive. It was either a Caddy or a Monte Carlo.
Okay.
All right, and you couldn't drive that car without having like a big bow on the mirror, right? Because you had to do that, and you never really knew who was driving the car, because really the only thing that you could see was from here up, like from the temples up, because it was like the gangster lean thing where everybody was low to the ground. Your one hand is on the steering wheel, and you just you steer while you're like looking left and right, making sure you keep moving so they can't get a clear shot at you. So those were the friends that we would hang out with. So we would do stuff that.
That's his new nickname, Henry Hill.
So I mean, I can see why your father was concerned. I mean,
Yeah.
Hanging out with the. Now, was this the Italian mob or was this the Jewish mob?
No, these were the Italians. These are the guys with the guinea horns.
Uh-huh.
You know what a guinea horn.
I don't know what a guinea horn
Oh, you
is.
don't know the guinea horn? Okay.
It's a gold little like horn, and all Italians had one. It was a long, like straight horn, and all Italians had one. That's how you knew your name ended in a vowel.
Okay.
You had that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but I will say though that I can't take complete blame for hanging out with these guys, because my father also, I know I'm jumping around. How do you spell ADD? Well, my father also, when he came to the United States, he jumped ship. Like, he was in the Merchant Marines, and when he came to New York, he like jumped ship and kind of stayed. He was like an illegal immigrant, and all of his friends were the Italians, because he spoke Italian. My father was from one of these islands in Greece, one of the Dodecanese islands in Greece, and they were still under Italian rule when he was growing up. And you couldn't go to school and learn Greek, because they only taught you Italian. You had to speak Italian wherever you went. So he spoke Italian as well as he spoke Greek. And so all of his friends were Italians at the time. And that's, Carmine this and Vito that and, whatever. I distinctly remember one time coming back from, I was in junior high, I guess. And he had a store. He was a carpenter. He had a store that was within walking distance of the school that I went to. And I remember,
What was the name of the school he went to?
So this was the James Madison High School was where he went to, James Madison in Brooklyn. So I remember walking into the store on Quentin Road, and I walk into the store, and so I'm doing my best impersonation of a little mafia guy, right? So I've got the cap, the little the black leather jacket, with the little.
You're feeling it. You're feeling
I'm
yourself.
walking in
Yeah.
the white shoes, like John Travolta here. And I walk into the store, and there's a couple of really fat Italian guys smoking cigars with their feet on the desk, and they're hanging out. And my father's in the back working. Like, what the heck is going on around here?
Man.
So as I Pops, what's up? What is happening in here? So apparently there was somebody was threatening the store, and his friends, these Italian friends, that came to protect the store, and so they were hanging out to protect this little American home improvement store that was with what he called. So he was like a kitchen cabinet maker.
That's what your dad did?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he was a carpenter basically. Manny. So, yeah. So, I mean, I was introduced to like the Italian culture at a very early age, but that it was rough because these guys, they didn't play around. Their dads were into the sanitation business and
right.
all this kind of stuff. and they would do stuff, and always had cash. These guys were never poor. Always had cash to spend. Always, would go out with the nicest clothes, the nicest cars, the nicest, whatever. It was a little bit, you would get very excited by seeing this as compared to your average like Brooklynite. So, yeah.
So then your dad was like, he sees the path you're going down, and he goes, "Forget it.
Yeah, it's time.
We're sending you to Greece."
Yeah, it's time to get you out of here. So
how did you take that at the time?
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated it. It was bad. But what could I do? I had no choice.
Yeah.
But it ended up being really the best thing that ever happened to me because, I stayed in Greece. I actually, I went to medical school in Greece. I stayed there. I lived there. Stayed in high school and finished high school and then, went to medical school there. I was actually planning on living in Greece for the rest of my life if I could.
Wow.
But I happened to meet my wife and she changed plans on me. And so we ended up coming back to the States after that, living in Chicago for a while and then New York and then ended up in Maryland. So,
all right.
Yeah, that's my story. I'm sticking with it.
Was there any particular spark that made you want to become a doctor?
Yeah, actually, there was. So, when my father had bladder cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very young at the time. I was actually probably in elementary school when he was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and he didn't speak English very well, and his urologist. I remember going to the office because we would like go together into the office. I was sort of like helping to translate, but I had to translate to my father how the urologist is telling him, you have cancer. Here's this little kid. He's telling his
right.
father, you have cancer. And I just remember getting an enormous sense of vulnerability.
Okay.
It was one of the most awful feelings I think I've ever had is that sense of vulnerability. It's the thing probably that has driven me the most in my life is never wanting to feel that sense of vulnerability again. They didn't know how to handle the situation so well. They couldn't really communicate effectively with the doctor, and I had to do this. And so I liked the doctor. He seemed like a good guy, and that sort of made me curious about medicine. And
Okay.
Plus, he drove a nice car, and
Yeah.
I thought, well,
Yeah.
it's not a bad life.
Is this the place?
James Madison High School. I can't tell from that angle, but that's got to be. This is in Brooklyn.
Yeah. See the water?
If you go around, yeah, that's the place. That's James Madison.
Is it bigger now than it was when you were there?
Much.
Is this the first building?
I'm going to say that the bigger one is the first building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any of it that looks familiar?
Not a lot. I will say not a lot. Not a lot. There was not that much. I remember the baseball fields and there were no tennis courts that I remember back then. That's interesting.
What's the mascot? Is it like a Spartan or something? Or a knight?
It's a
thought
knight.
It was a knight. Yeah. Yeah.
He's on the sigil.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So I can't remember which one of these is Quentin Road. What one of these roads would take you? You just take it straight and it would lead you right to Dad's store.
Did you live near here?
Yeah, lived near. So you could walk from my father's store to the house. You could walk from my father's store to the school too.
This is when you were 15?
Younger. Yeah, even
14?
younger. Yeah.
He's totally Henry Hill. Except his dad sent him away instead of allowing him to stay.
Getting put away.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think would have happened if you had stayed, if your father hadn't come up with that plan? Do you...
I don't know.
Because you were hanging out with the wise guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were in the in crowd, though, too.
I was in the in crowd.
I can't blame you for doing that.
Yeah.
At that age.
It was a sense of strength and like a sense of belonging and a sense of strength. And, everybody respected these guys,
Yeah, they had their stuff squared away.
Yeah.
They had to perform. Or
Yeah. Yeah. But it was the kind of thing where, you really, if you didn't exactly know where you belonged, you weren't sure of anything, the people who embraced you the most is where you went. And that's kind of where I ended up. And I don't know what would have happened. I mean, maybe I would have turned it around at some point and thought, like, okay, this is really not the life I want. But at the time, I couldn't think of doing anything different. And these guys were it. Their lives were it.
so where in Greece did you end up going to at 15?
No, it was late. So it was in my I spent my junior and senior year of high school there. So like probably closer to, I guess it was 16 because I was born in December, so it's probably closer to 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and to Athens. Yeah, so it was
What a downgrade. Jesus.
Athens is a pretty cool place too, though.
Athens.
Yeah, so we lived in Athens. I had to live with my aunt, because she was my father's sister.
Athens.
He's gonna spy on me now.
We're going to check it out on Wikipedia.
155 ASKLIPIOU.
Is that your address?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. You got to go to Street View. We got to see what it was like.
Jeez.
So that was like the 70s when you did that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The disco era.
Yeah. Did you go to a lot of discos?
Well, you go to discos just to, you go, you have a good time, you have a fight, and you leave.
All right.
That was the deal. So, I don't know.
Well, women go to discos. That's,
Yeah.
that's a good reason to go to a disco.
Right. Yeah. It's a city. I mean, it's...
Have you seen this house since you've
Mm-hmm.
been back?
Yeah. I tend to like go back to places where I've spent time. I don't know. I can't like extract myself completely from.
There's a
from all that
clinic
stuff.
right there.
Yeah.
I enjoy going back and seeing like an old house I lived in.
Right.
I enjoy
Right.
that very much.
So you grew up here too?
I grew up in Baltimore City.
Yeah.
And I was about 10. We left the city and moved to the county, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a row home, your standard row home in Baltimore, right near Fort McHenry,
Okay.
South Baltimore. And I love going down there, and
Yeah.
I love showing my son like that's where I grew up and that's where I
Right.
lived and everything.
Yeah.
I lived in the city when he was born. We stayed in the city probably until he was about 5, and when he became of school age, I didn't want to send him to some of those schools in the city.
Yeah.
You have to apply to get bussed out to a different school, and I'm like, I'm not putting him through that.
Right.
Because I'd probably have to send him to go live in Greece when he's 15. Yeah.
Schools are important.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
Very
why
important.
we came to Anne Arundel for the schools, and
Yeah.
he's got a couple years left, and then yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Look at this amphitheater that's like a stone's throw from your old house.
What, that place up here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's up a hill. It's right at the top of a hill. It's a great place actually. You got fantastic views. Yeah, right at the top of that
Wow.
place.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really kind of a cool place.
So you really got the shitty end of the stick, is what I'm seeing there.
Well, I will say it wasn't exactly fun living with my aunt. She was a tough old bird.
Tell us more.
Oh man. So
What was the thing she did that was the toughest? What did you have to do?
well, so you really couldn't go anywhere without her having complete knowledge of where you were going, when you were coming back. very rigid, and this is the time you're getting up, this is the time you're going to bed, this is everything is like very, very structured. And
Did she have kids of her own, or just her nephew?
She had two sons and a daughter, and her oldest son was also in the Merchant Marines, and he was not there the whole time. Her second son, he was an architect, and he lived there for a while until he got married and moved out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the daughter, and these guys are obviously their cousins, lived there the whole time that I was there too. So yeah, and I got along with her very well. She was a cool chick. We're still
cousin?
in touch. Yeah. We're still in touch with her.
Was she older or younger?
She was a little bit older than me.
Oh, so you were hooked up with the older women.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. He really got the shitty end of the stick on this one.
And she was a very attractive woman too, I must say. But she helped me through a lot because we get integrated into social circles through people that are around you, and through her friends and her whatever, I was able to kind of.
Did they speak English, or were you fluent in Greek?
I wasn't fluent in Greek. That was the tough part. I was not fluent in Greek. I had a really I could speak some Greek, but not enough to do very much. But my everyone in Europe, for the most part, most people speak some English, and and my cousin was an English lit major. So she spoke English very well, and so it was easy for me. So between that and some of the friends that I met that I had in high school, that I became friends with during, who were obviously American in school, it made life a little easier, that transition easier, and so I forgot about my wayward ways. And
did you, or did you keep in touch with those guys and actually do import-exports with them?
Well, yeah. I will tell you, though, in all
seriousness, didn't you?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, yep.
No, but I'll tell you, a lot of those guys that I was friends with are no longer with us. Unfortunately, you would hear every once in a while that someone, they're gone.
I'm surprised you don't have more complex habits with coffee. Based on this knowledge.
I don't know. I do. I have changed a lot.
I guess just the fact that you're drinking it cold is a big change.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty wild. Did you appreciate Greece right away, or like how long did it take?
No, it took a while.
Yeah.
It took a while. I was very unhappy there for probably at least like 6 months plus.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a long time.
Oh, I guess
Jesus
when you're 16 and you just started shaving, it was a tough 6 months in the beginning, and then I slowly got acclimated. But it wasn't. I can't. I wouldn't have changed that for the world. I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It sounds like it.
Yeah,
it definitely sounds like
I made some really good friends there. Some friends that I still have there. So yeah, it was an enjoyable time.
So you met your wife in Greece?
I met her in Greece, yeah.
From Chicago, but in Greece.
Because one of my friends was another New York guy who I happened to meet in Greece,
mm-hmm.
whose girlfriend was from Chicago, who had a girlfriend who was to be my wife. And so we met that way.
Gotcha.
When you were how old?
This was in my first year of medical school. So I graduated so you had to take an entrance exam to get into.
So you were 19, 20?
Yeah, 20.
20.
You had to take an entrance exam to get into medical school. And so I had studied for it the first year and bombed. I didn't do well, so I didn't get in. But at that point, I wanted to stay. I was going to stay in Greece. That was where I was going to be. And so then I just kind of buckled down and studied. And so, passed the entrance exam the second time around and got into medical school then. So it was like a year after high school, after I was done with high school. So, and it was just like a 6-year medical program as opposed to here where it's like 4 years pre-med, 4 years medical school.
Was she going to medical school too? Is that how you met her?
No, she was just vacationing.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got introduced by my friend.
At 20.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
How did she come to be living there if she's from Chicago?
Oh, she wasn't. She was just she would come in the summertime and spend summers there, and her parents had a summer place there,
Okay.
and so that she would come. And so
That's a big European thing, isn't it? Like all of August.
yeah,
Everybody takes
a
August
month long,
off.
yeah. All right, yeah.
Believe this? We don't get August off. They get August off.
I mean, in Greece, in August,
Italy does the same thing.
everybody is 6 feet tall and blonde. They're they're all from the Scandinavian countries.
I'm going to have to go there in August.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Meet Scandinavian women in Greece in August.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what it's there for. Oh man.
I can think of worse things to do with my August.
I didn't realize everybody took August off.
Yeah, it's kind of
I worked for this company. It was a Sequist dispensing, and they make. You guys probably have products that I designed way back in my 20s. At hairspray and mousse and stuff like that. Just the dispenser on top of it.
Oh, okay.
And we had this one product that was called Euromist. Well, we didn't realize that the translation for that I think this is the German division. Well, Euromist means shit.
Oh God.
Mist means shit.
Okay.
Really?
So, but they have like a month off where they close that division every year.
How far into the project was it when you realized the name meant shit?
I don't think until they were all the way in production, because the marketing team over here in America didn't talk to that marketing team, and I also have a feeling, if I remember correctly, that part of the company, like there was this merger that went on after the product line, but yeah, that was very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But like a lot of the lotion pumps and hairspray actuators are decades old. They haven't changed for forever. They make the molds. They start making the plastic parts.
Mm-hmm.
They get successful plastic parts. They don't change the look.
If it
They
works.
just keep pumping them out for decades.
Well, unless someone comes up with a better idea.
Well, the biggest reason is the machinery that. So you got the can.
Mm-hmm.
You fill it with the product, and then you've got a machine that crimps that on the top of it,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got all of this different stuff to put all of that together.
Mm-hmm.
And you change one of the components, and now you've got to figure out how to get rid of all that
Right.
scrap from that again.
Right.
And what we were dealing with was basically, that's why, is because they don't want to pay for all of that.
Well, yeah.
And customers aren't going to pay to get a new product, a new assembly line up in place,
Yeah.
even if they wanted to have a unique thing.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's
So-
the rate limiting step is the finances associated with the change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Somebody reaching out.
That's Vito.
I get that.
Vito's like, I heard you was talking about me.
Well, break your thumbs. No.
Man,
So
that's
have you been in touch with friends that you grew up with?
I have pretty much one friend that I grew up with that I still talk to.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a variety of friends, but I don't know. I'm like friends with them on Facebook and stuff, and we
Yeah.
talk every once in a while. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in a band with 10 people.
Mm.
So like everybody in our band is in a Facebook group and everything, but really since my son was little, I just decided to really focus on him.
Yeah.
So now I'm usually spending my time with him or with this guy sitting across from me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
That's
like you lose touch with people over years, right?
Well, it's true. Yeah, people move away. They have other interests or whatever. It's not easy to stay in touch, well, you can stay in touch, but it's not like intimate kind of
Well,
gatherings.
Heath talked about that. We talked about that a little bit, where you can say it better than I can, but about how you feel like as some men get older, or a lot of men get older, they tend to isolate more moving down the line.
Well, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast. And you and I have talked about it at coffee is men don't make friends easily. Our lives become, I mean, I had a family for a while. Now I totally disconnected from that part of my life. So we get, and especially in modern times, everything gets just so fragmented.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, I don't have the lifestyle to meet other people and just magnetically start hanging out with them, where women, their entire lifestyle is about coalescing in different environments.
Girls' night.
For their entire life.
Yeah.
It's about coalescing. Well, let's get together and we'll have a party for the kids. And it doesn't matter how old the kids are. Right? They get older, they get to be adults, they're married with their own kids. Okay, let's have the kids over with their grandkids.
But I think in general, I mean, there are differences between the sexes. You know, women are very good at like nurturing and, creating and expressing themselves. Probably they express themselves better than your average guy does.
They say three times as many words in a day that men do. This is one of the reasons why.
But it works as far as building relationships. It works. But as we all get older, it's harder to build those relationships than when you were younger. And, it's great when you have a history with somebody. It connects you. But if you don't have a history, then, it's just that much more difficult to become intimately, connected.
And on the spectrum of agreeableness, women fit into that in general more than men do. Yeah. There are some women who are very disagreeable, but on average, they're more agreeable than men are.
Yeah, that's probably very true. And maybe they compromise.
That's why they do better in school.
Yeah.
It's because we're like, I don't think I like that truth. Or I don't think that's true. And so we question a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because we're disagreeable. Disagreeable people are important in society. Really important. I don't think America would have existed without them. Because I think all of those assholes were very disagreeable people.
Our founders, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think they were very. I mean, they were. If they were part of America and they were part of Britain, and then you were at this stage, they would probably be considered, hey, we're going to succeed away from that country. So were they traitors? We don't portray them as such because we wrote the history books on the whole thing. Yeah. Like I listened to this guy on TikTok who's a British guy who lives here in the States. And he can't believe some of the differences between there and here, and just the way that they say words, and just the general like differences in history. Like, I can't believe you guys believe some of this stuff. And then he realizes like what we understand about this particular scenario in Britain. I can't remember one of them, otherwise I'd say. Yeah. But he was like, he looked it up and it was more true than what he learned in high school, because they wrote the history on it. And so they made them so that it didn't look too bad. Yeah, I don't think that history books necessarily portray everything as it is, or it's more like as they do not, as it's you want it to be. They absolutely do not. But the winners write the history. Yeah, it's very much that way. Like Have you guys ever read Benjamin Franklin's autobiography?
I did. I did read it.
I mean, the
Yes.
autobiography.
Not the autobiography. I've read a biography, not the autobiography.
Yeah, the one that Isaac.
Isaac, not Walters. Is it
Walter. Yeah, Walterson. Well, Isaacson.
Isaacson? Walter Isaacson.
Walter Isaacson.
We'll get it right.
Yeah, we're not doing too bad. Walter, it was absolutely amazing, and I think he does a pretty good job of like. But he even says that's my perspective.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily how it happened.
Yeah.
And he does. I think the reason why I like the biography so much is because it is a cohesive story, where he came up with. This is my rendition of all the books that I read on him. And this is how I understand him to be from what I read. But he's not portraying it as this is the history of Benjamin Franklin. Yeah. Now, the reason I asked you about the autobiography is because I read that when I was 17. And it's very much different.
Really?
Very much different. Like, in the biography, he talks about his illegitimate son and things like that, and he never admits to any of that in his autobiography.
I had no idea.
Well, it's his autobiography. Is he going to paint himself in a bad brush with a bad brush? No. And so
I suppose that's true.
And so then he had all these high-minded ideas about tracking his goals and setting goals and stuff like that. None of it works because I tried to implement a lot of it, but it wasn't what he did either. After reading the biography in my 50s versus what I learned when I was 17, is that was his high-minded ideals of what you should live like. But it wasn't even the way that he lived, you know. But you know, writers are people too. And so he was writing, and it is interesting what he wrote down. You should read the autobiography, but it's more. Just get the paperback and that's one I would recommend doing with actual paper, with an actual book, because it's instead of an audio book, is because he's got graphs and stuff in it, and
it'd be nice to read the two side by side and see how they differ.
Oh, they're very different.
Yeah,
Benjamin Franklin portrayed a much different persona of his life and the people in it than come across in his autobiography.
But he was also I think not well understood like he and like John Adams were very much at odds with each other, you know. But I kind of, with the thing I admired about him.
You mean they were both very disagreeable people?
Yeah, they were.
And so they were banging heads against each other?
I don't think, in theory, Franklin was such a disagreeable guy, right? I thought he would compromise. He would give people the benefit of the doubt. He was basically a softer approach, but in the end would, ultimately sort of prevail if he found ways to.
Actually, I have a twist on that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're necessarily wrong, but I think he wanted the outward persona that other people picked up on from him as being exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So he is very calculated in the way that he performed in front of other people. But I don't think that was him at all. I think he was very calculated in the background, and that's why we're America now.
Well, I'm sure, he was calculated.
Without him in France for all of those years, we would not be the United States.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
No, there's no doubt.
His relationships that he developed when he was staying in Versailles and playing chess every day and drinking too much wine and philandering with French women.
Yeah. Well, he enjoyed.
I think he was a very, very disagreeable man.
Yeah. All of these founding fathers, I think, were heavy drinkers and, like you said, probably very disagreeable.
Well, the significance of one thing that you'll understand as a doctor is he lived to be 84. His parents lived to be 85 before germ theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were still using outhouses. They didn't have plumbing in the house. And he lived to be in his 80s. He didn't get a shower every day. He didn't get a shower every week.
Yeah.
Can you imagine using an outhouse for that many years and not getting a shower every couple of days just to wash your bum?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
if that's what you're used to.
I mean, I don't know that that necessarily. You know, people died then. There were a lot of like epidemics of stuff that were going on there. You know, there was malaria and there was and flu. You know, those kinds of things. There was a lot of that that was killing people at the time. Obviously, they didn't have air conditioning, and people would during the summertime, everybody would leave the cities, leave Philly, leave New York, leave whatever, and they would go out into the countryside. So they were away from most people because it smelled bad, and they were away from people.
Yeah.
Whenever there was a breakout of some kind of a disease.
Well, to your point, the disease, just to stay healthy,
Yeah,
they had to leave the city.
yeah. But,
Man, I never even think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He got to be 84, and I couldn't believe his parents actually got to be older.
Yeah.
Because that was, I mean, his dad was pretty old when he was born. Wasn't he the youngest?
I don't think he was the youngest. I'm not positive if he was.
I think he was.
Maybe
the
he
youngest.
was.
If I'm at least the second to, no, I think he was the youngest in his family.
We would have to look that one up. I'm not sure.
But his brothers were much older than him, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
The one he came to live in America with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And his business dealings, got.
The man, he printed his own money.
Yeah. He printed everything.
He was he was very much against fiat, but he couldn't. There was no other way back then. People needed something in order for commerce to grow.
Yeah.
They had to have something.
Yeah.
Because you can't go to the doctor and give him a chicken every time you go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody in town's doing that. That man has too many chickens.
Yeah.
What's he going to do with all those chickens?
Yeah.
And he's got to take. Then instead of being a doctor, he's got to take care of chickens full time. You know what I mean?
He had 16 siblings.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I think they were Catholic.
And to think that women, so many women died in childbirth, to have 16 siblings, that's
Well, I'm pretty sure that
is more than one.
that his mom never went to the actual hospital, which was probably best
Yeah,
back
I
then.
don't know.
Well, you know why so many of them did when they went to see the doctors? Because the doctors were doing autopsies and didn't clean their hands at all.
Yeah, they didn't know about all that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
What was that guy's name that discovered that? He was even on the higher end of disagreeable. It's funny when I started listening to Jordan Peterson talk about these, the big 5 different characteristics that people have. I can't even name them all off, but disagreeable has been something I pay a lot more attention to nowadays.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily a bad thing that people are disagreeable.
It depends. Well, I don't know what.
They're less likely to be hoodwinked or gullible.
Yeah. Civil is
Not
different than disagreeable.
Yeah, you can be, and that's a good distinction. I think
Yeah.
I think Benjamin Franklin was extremely civil.
Yeah.
Much more than
Adams.
Samuel Adams.
John Adams.
John
Yeah.
Adams was the opposite. I don't think
Yeah.
he was civil at all, and he
Yeah.
was even more disagreeable.
Yeah.
But did you ever watch the John Adams series that Paul Giamatti made? Giamatti?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. He lived to be 94.
It didn't. Who did John Adams and
Thomas
died-
Jefferson.
They died on the same day,
Mm-hmm.
roughly at the same time. It's pretty interesting.
I don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah, I think they
The
off themselves
mothership
at the
came
same
back
time.
for those aliens.
Yeah. They were presidents 2 and 3, right? Adams and Jefferson?
Jefferson was 2.
two.
I don't know that Adams was 3. He
I thought
could have
Adams
was.
was 2, Jefferson was 3.
I think Jefferson was 3. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think-
Washington, Adams, Jefferson.
yeah.
Really?
That's pretty much where I tap out.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you who 4 is. My father always told me John Hanson was the actual first president.
John Hanson.
Yeah. every time we drove on John Hanson Highway, he was like, John Hanson was actually the guy who first ran it. He acted as the first president, but Washington was the first official president. But he's like, before Washington was in charge, John Hanson was in charge.
Who is this?
John Hanson?
Yeah.
The guy that they named John Hanson Highway after. I believe he's one of the signers of the Declaration.
I've never heard the name before.
No, I only know.
It doesn't surprise
Route
me
50.
with the way our schools work that I have never heard their name before. As important as he is.
Well, that was my father's point. It was always that he got buried, man. He just never got his. No one ever threw with him his roses.
Yeah.
So here's Thomas Jefferson was number 3. James Madison was number 4.
Mm-hmm.
James Monroe was number 5. John Quincy Adams was much older than his father, huh?
Mm.
When he was president?
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. November 1781, John Hanson became the first president of the United States.
I do know about Andrew Jackson. They tried to put in a central bank with him, and he went to such a degree that he expanded the powers of the president to a place that's probably not positive in order to make sure that the Federal Reserve didn't get to be put in place back then, which, now we have one. And the reason I bring it up is because I don't think a lot of people realize just exactly how much, when the money is corrupt, is systemic across everything else that it touches, and money touches everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only reason that we actually pay taxes is because they want us. It's kind of an illusion that we're actually. That's how they get all their revenue to do the governmental things. When the truth of the matter is that most of the money that they use is printed. It's not from our taxes. That's how we're. What is it? $35 trillion in debt.
Well, so I don't understand how the money is collected and then drawn down.
Do you know how a simple loan at the bank works? So you go into the bank and you get a loan. You're not taking other people's deposits. They're creating an account and they're typing in the number and they create the money. That's how that works. Because they're linked to the Federal Reserve, they're allowed to do that. Yeah, so when we have programs and stuff that come out of the government, they want to do something, they just print the money. It doesn't come out of our taxes.
So what's all the fighting about?
It's a distraction. It's to keep people. I mean, how old are you?
I'm going to be 65 in December.
And they still don't teach what I just taught you in high school. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want really people to know. I didn't know until a few years ago when I read The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is about the creature is supposed to be the Federal Reserve. And it's a bunch of bankers. I can't even remember their names, but they create the Federal Reserve back in 1913, I think.
So hold on. So what are you saying they do? They just print money when somebody needs it?
When the government wants to do something, they go to a non-federal bank. It's called the Federal Reserve, but it's not part of the government. It's a privately held bank system. I'll let that sink in for a second. The Federal Reserve is not part of our government. It's private. And then they print the money. They don't necessarily. They used to print the money.
Yeah, that
but
was.
Nowadays with computers, they just
create
add
more
zeros to your account.
Yeah, just make some more.
Yeah. Well, that's so. This 2%, which is also fictitious, So government gives raises based on the official, not necessarily the real, but the official inflation numbers to their own government employees. And so their incentive is to keep inflation low. To keep their wages low. So the likelihood of during the pandemic of inflation being more like 30% is pretty high. I know it was at least 10%. Because they printed more money during those 3 years than they had. I can't remember the number, so I'm not going to say. But it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because nobody was making money and businesses were shutting down, so they weren't getting taxes from people, and they were handing checks out. So where was all that coming from? The money printer.
Yeah.
And so what that does is it's like saying, I'm giving you a slice of pizza, right? And so you have this amount of the treasure that everybody has, and then the guy whose name ends with a vowel goes out and he makes 10 more pizzas. Doesn't tell any of the people he already gave pizza to, and they don't know that their pizza's not as valuable as it used to be because now there's all this other pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So if you save your income in the bank in cash, it's, let's say you started before the pandemic and now it's at least worth 10% less.
Mm-hmm.
But you can literally track, and I believe, inflation by the value of your house. What was it before the pandemic? What is it now? Houses don't increase in value. They decrease in value because your windows get older, your roofs get worse, all this repair that you have to do. And so how could it be over a 5-year period that your house would go up by 30 to 60% in value? It's not that. That's not how it happens. The dollar went down that much in value.
Well, isn't it just that it's whatever people want to pay? It doesn't even have to be tied to anything in particular.
Anyway, I didn't mean to turn this all about the Federal Reserve. It's just I thought it was interesting. Andrew Jackson, he ended up increasing the power of the presidency to fight off the Federal Reserve because he realized that it was going to, even in the book that you read from Benjamin Franklin, he realized that him printing money from a printer, obviously he can make himself wealthy.
Yeah.
He was who's counting? Were they serialized? They weren't serialized.
Yeah.
The money he was printing wasn't even serialized. Could you imagine him making money that was serialized back then? The amount of trouble that would have been with a printer that goes like this in order for you to print. That means every time that you pulled the lever, you'd have to go to every place that was printing $1, and you'd have to change the serial number before you pull the lever again.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way that was happening when he was first creating fiat money.
Yeah.
So he could literally hey, just print this afternoon for us. And then,
yeah,
He's buried right next to the Mint in Philadelphia.
he sure is.
Yeah.
He actually and I don't know, what did you think of the stories that he was telling in that book? I thought that was really
those
interesting.
anonymous stories that he would write and put out,
which were meant to manipulate people's beliefs.
Yeah,
entirely.
I had a hard time even following some of the like all these metaphors and whatever he would use. It was just hard to follow sometimes. But yeah, it was. But people gobbled it up. I mean, they were whatever he printed.
They
and wrote,
were incensed.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, he literally ran over the other printer in town with the stories that he was anonymously writing that were completely fictitious.
Yeah.
The people didn't exist. That stuff never happened. Talk about misinformation. Benjamin Franklin was the master.
Yeah.
He was the first master.
Not a lot has changed since then, I guess.
I think you'd really like the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, his biography.
Yeah.
It's just, He created the fire department. He created the
Yeah,
police
that's
department.
right.
He created
Yeah.
the libraries. He created most of the stuff that we still use nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And even in Boston, there are a couple of what do they call them? There's a couple of they give out money for school.
The charities,
Scholarships?
Scholarships, yeah. The thing is that he designed it so that the money would run out eventually, and the people who are running the scholarships have been manipulating it to make it go further into the future, which was not his intent.
Yeah. More importantly than all of that, he made the Franklin stove.
Here's the thing about the Franklin stove, and it is important because it reduced the number of deaths because people were dying from carbon monoxide in their homes. But you remember when he did that? How old he was?
No.
He designed that on this boat ride back from, I think it was his last boat ride back in a boat for him. It wasn't a cruise ship.
Yeah, it was like
It's the Mayflower
from England. Yeah.
Maybe bigger, maybe twice the size, but it was still a little tiny wooden boat, and a lot of people would die on those trips across the ocean because they simply didn't know what they didn't know.
I'm impressed.
I mean, this is all before germ theory, so nobody knew to clean themselves.
Yeah. I'm impressed with your recollection of all these things. I read this, and then, like, when someone says something, it sounds familiar. But if I were, I can't recall what I read in that kind of detail.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah. It's interesting when you read it.
What's the Franklin stove? I don't know what that is. Is that like the current stove?
I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, they would burn, I guess, like a wood stove, but all what they would burn, all of the would come out. So he developed, I think, a way where you could get heat, and yet all the smoke would
like
leave
an exhaust,
an exhaust and go in a certain way. So he would just get the heat, and not die of carbon monoxide. I don't remember the actual technically how he did it, but it was pretty life-changing for many people.
1742.
Yeah.
That's when he made it?
Yep. So one of the things that it did is it put the stove in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
So it would radiate
the heat
entire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all
I mean,
around.
most fireplaces are on the outside of the house, and if you think about it, that's really stupid.
Yeah. Not
Right.
efficient.
Right? You want all the sides of the chimney
Yeah.
to radiate into the house.
Oh,
But
man.
it was cast iron furnace, middle of the room. But a big part of it was I'm not finding it here. It's probably a little hard to find, but a big part of it is that it reduced a lot of smoke and carbon monoxide in the room.
I stayed in an Airbnb in Minnesota, and it had a stove like that in the middle of the room. It was amazing.
They just look up the drawings of a Franklin stove, and so it'll tell you how it's done. I think there was something in the book about it too. I think I drew it out. I didn't pay as much attention probably as I should, not knowing we were going to discuss it here tonight.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you've got the internet, right?
Yeah.
This is, I think, what he actually. I thought it was displaying. There we go. I think this is what he actually drew.
All right.
But this is really what it looks like.
Yeah, but somebody's got to be able to, with the parts of the actual stove.
Here's a nice looking one,
Okay.
right?
So I have a pellet stove
But
in
it
my
doesn't-
house that's designed after the Franklin stove. It
Yeah.
took some inspiration.
Right.
But I remember him talking about it in the book, and the best part about it is I mean, he's in his 80s, and his mind is just so inquisitive and doesn't stop.
He's
And
always curious.
Well, he was constantly writing, imagine if you could find if his stupid son had. I think this might be the big part of it right here. There's a way that it was vented,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
but
So-
I don't know. But they talked about it in his biography and said
Yeah.
it had a lot to do with making it more smokeless.
Yeah. Right.
And that's even true nowadays. Like,
Mhm.
These most people warm their house with wood still
Mm-hmm.
or actually dung,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the even the pellet stoves though they do put out like microscopic little particles or whatever, and so some people who have like breathing problems and sensitive lungs, they end up getting wheezy or whatever with when they're in a room with either a wood burning stove or a pellet stove even,
Or
You should
scented
always-
candles.
or scented candles. So you need some ventilation when you do that.
Scented candles are not worth the
Yeah.
it's a juice that's not worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's a one very nice scent.
No, the well-meaning mothers put scented candles in
Yeah.
rooms where their kids are, and it's not good.
Yeah.
My favorite candle is made in Quebec, and it's got maple
Uh-huh.
in the wax. Oh
Oh.
man, it's an awesome. It's a good hockey season candle.
Oh,
'Cause,
I see.
it just
Yeah.
smells like Canada.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
If Canada had a smell, that would be
If
it.
Canada had a smell.
Right.
There it is. It produced more heat and less smoke than an ordinary open fireplace.
Yeah. You know what else he invented? You remember what else he invented?
They still use a lot of the same terminology that he came
Mhm.
up with for electricity.
Yeah.
And he invented and sold a lot of lightning rods for the tops
Yeah.
of houses.
Yep. Yeah. And something we use every day. Most people use every day.
Yeah.
Eyeglasses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they called them something else back then.
I don't know. Spectacles. I don't know what they call them.
Spectacle. They probably were called.
No, there were something along those lines.
So, like, did they have like monocles before him, and then he decided?
No, I don't think they did.
I don't think they had anything before
They
him.
didn't have
No.
anything.
I don't think he was one of the first. What do they call them? Polymaths,
Yeah.
where he was. And Thomas Jefferson was a polymath too. I mean,
Yeah.
where they were just good at.
Those are smart people, knowledgeable people.
They were just good at so many different things. Their minds were. That's how you live to be that old. Is just be
Yeah,
busy.
They read like crazy, anything they could get their hands on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have Facebook, I guess, to occupy
They
their
did
time.
not.
To
Do-
scroll.
To doom scroll.
We're talking about doom scrolling today.
Oh man,
Yeah.
look at the water. I would definitely be out jet surfing today.
Mm.
God.
Jim, you were probably a young man, but do you remember when Kennedy was assassinated?
63, November 63.
I mean, do you have any memory of that? You were probably
No,
like
no, 'cause
3.
I
or-
was,
You don't
yeah, 'cause
remember
I was-
where you were?
I was born in 59, so
Okay.
So you were.
yeah, and I was still. My only memory, honestly, the first like major memory I remember is the 1969 Mets World Series win.
All right.
That's the thing that I remember. I just remember like schools were closing down. Everybody was like, "Oh, yay, the Mets won the World Series." And
Really?
they were watching it even in the classrooms. It was like ridiculous.
That's like a pretty cool thing to be like one of the first major world events I remember.
Yeah,
Is that?
yeah. The Kennedy thing, you mean? Is that
But no, when remembering the World Series
Oh, the
like
World
that, that's a
Series.
pretty
Yeah,
good
yeah,
one.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a pretty good one.
yeah.
I mean, one of the first things I remember is the Challenger crash. I was in second grade,
Yeah.
and like I remember they wheeled the TV in, and we watched it on TV.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, I don't know. What about you, Heath? When is one of your first like major world events memories?
Oh, that's easy. I was. I think it was the first or second year I was in vocational school for CAD, computer assisted design, which I still do to this day.
Mhm.
And the space shuttle blew up.
Mm.
The Challenger?
What was the
What
first
was
one that blew up?
The Challenger.
The Challenger.
Yeah, it was the Challenger then.
Yeah.
But how old were you then? You were in high school? You don't remember anything like that a little earlier than that? Nothing notable?
No, because the next thing that happened that was notable was Chernobyl, and I was out of high school when that happened.
Mm.
I remember when they took down the Berlin Wall.
That was after high school for me.
That was
Yeah.
90, 89, 90.
Yeah. And that was just before Chernobyl, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought
Chernobyl
Chernobyl was like the 70s or something.
No, it was 96.
It was that late?
Yeah. It was 96.
Holy smokes. I mean, I graduated high school then. I must have missed that.
Yeah.
You were in high school, you were doing other things. You were hanging out with this bag crowd.
Yeah. Kinda.
Yeah, I don't know.
Look at that. It was really windy today.
For a little bit anyway, it was. Yeah. That's cool. What you got going on out there? Is that
Raspberries?
this structure right here?
I stupidly left the umbrella thing open,
Mm-hmm.
and I bent it,
Yikes.
and I just haven't gone out there I just need to unscrew the bracketry
Mm-hmm.
and like turn the pieces around and then drill a couple of holes and screw it back together.
Okay.
But then there's a couch there,
Uh-huh.
and the cushions are in that container right there. And then at the end there, that's my raspberry garden.
Nice. Very nice.
I've been preoccupied with the roof,
Yeah.
the gutters. Now they're telling me it's going to take a month to get my solar panels put back on.
Oh God. Who did your solar panels?
It's electrical company Power Factor.
Hmm.
Apparently, it's going to take them a month to get the permitting
Yeah.
sealed away. Our government is just a shambles.
Yeah. Dude wants some solar panels on his roof. Just
I have
do it.
all the stuff here.
Yeah.
I have everything here.
Unbelievable.
I
Well,
wish it was unbelievable. I wish it was like something, I was pretty silly when I was a kid. I thought that because of computers, things would get easier.
mm,
Like it would get, things would get more efficient.
yeah.
You can relate with what
just
you were
like- just
telling me
like in
about the
medicine,
office,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you would think you would be using a tablet and you would be dictating to the machine and it would be
Mhm.
writing all your notes for
Yeah.
it. So your notes would be all immaculate and all very much very easily retrievable and auditable. And the way that they have made everything is to accomplish the exact opposite.
Yeah.
To just figure out ways to make the bureaucracy cost more money.
A lot of people out there got to justify their jobs, man.
Isn't that what AI is all about now? Making all that easier.
It could be. It could be. I don't mean to imply that things aren't the best that have ever been, but
Yeah.
it just it's all about the incentives, whatever they are. That's what drives the direction we end up going.
I'm completely convinced. So that, I mean, things are generally going. I think generally things are better than they were in
Oh yeah.
in
Oh yeah.
in the big picture. But the same problems that we have now, we had then. It's that people are the same now as they were then. There's not a lot that's changed. That was actually.
Except when we used to be when we got on the bus,
Mhm.
we were on the bus.
Mhm.
Oh, that guy's
Yeah.
coughing. That guy over there's picking his nose. That guy's looking out the window. It's raining outside. Oh, I just hit a bump. Now you don't know any of that stuff because everybody's in their phone.
Right.
Yeah.
It is the truth. The phones rule.
It's kind of time travel, isn't it?
Time travel?
It's It's like I was at point A,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm at point B, and I don't remember anything in
Oh,
between.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw this comic one time. It's these aliens had, parked their spaceship, and they were trying to trap humans. And in order to trap humans, they had this sign that they put on the spaceship with the big open door that said free Wi-Fi. And everybody was walking in towards it with their phones and walking into the spaceship.
Yeah, free Wi-Fi. That would do it.
Right.
That'll get me someplace.
So we left off. You were 20.
Uh-huh.
You met your wife,
Yeah.
or your soon-to-be fiance. How
Yes.
long was it before you guys got engaged?
So it was probably not quite 2 years, like maybe not quite 2 years. Yeah. Because so we met like 20 plus, and then I think I was 22 when we got engaged, and then got married after that, shortly after that. So yeah,
Were you in Greece still then, or were you back here?
came back here to get married, went back to Greece to finish school, came back and lived in Chicago for a while.
Where at?
We lived, we was living with my in-laws for a while, and then for a short while, you know where Northwestern is in Chicago, right around that area, because I was at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's for a while, which I don't think it's the same name now, and then at Northwestern for a while.
That name actually sounds familiar, but I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you because
Yeah.
I didn't go to that.
Yes, it was basically in the city, so, and from Chicago, New York, and Maryland, and Heath's house. The house that Heath built.
Maybe a little more detail in between. So you're in your early 20s and you're going to Northwestern, or you're living near it?
So I was living near, but I did my first year of internship at that hospital, that Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's,
Mhm.
and Mount Sinai was another hospital in
Yeah,
Chicago.
now I remember, and I actually dated someone who worked at Rush.
Yeah, and so after that, I was there for a year. Went to New York finished my residency in New York.
Where at?
At North Shore University Hospital. It's on the North Shore of Long Island, and then went back to Chicago for a year.
Mhm.
I was at Northwestern for a year in their allergy immunology program, and then went back to New York and decided I didn't want to be in hospital medicine, and went to private practice, and just sort of stayed in private practice since then, and just
So you
doing
started your
jobs.
private practice in New York.
I joined a group in New York.
How the hell did you end up in
So I had a friend who I was
over
in
the bridge here?
I had a friend who was in residency with me who came down to this area and became was a pediatrician in this area, and then they had an opening and he invited me down, and I came down and joined his group, but that didn't work out, and then ended up leaving there.
Okay, why?
Well,
Can't skip over it.
It was a culture. This guy asks a lot of questions. Have you noticed
Yeah,
that,
he
Zach?
does. He does.
Well, so there was not a good cultural fit, we'll call it. It just wasn't the right environment.
Was it him or you that was too disagreeable?
No, it was a big group, and everybody was disagreeable, according to me anyway, except for me. I wasn't disagreeable, but it just wasn't the right fit for me. I just didn't like the way they were practicing, and so I left there.
Were you cutting corners or something, or?
No, it's just people were not looking. It's kind of the same problem I have like with society, is that everyone, it's a me kind of thing, and you're not doing something for the sake of the group as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's a long-term relationship that can survive. So
you had a doctor group, and everybody
Mhm.
was acting in their own self-interest.
yeah, they wouldn't. There's not a lot of, not that you should put your whole life, behind your work, but people really were looking more out for their own convenience, their own schedules, their own, not doing things that would benefit the practice as a whole. And I think that would not be a healthy way to be, and not the kind of culture I wanted to practice in. So I left and started
Seems like
something in
the-
Eastern Shore.
Seems like the entire health industry has suffered from that kind of. I mean, how else does the
Yeah.
government get so involved with all of the? They were private individual practices,
Mm-hmm.
and now the government's really involved with.
Government and private equity and hospitals or whatever. you know.
Yeah, I watched this guy on TikTok who does some really funny stuff where he plays a bunch of different doctors,
Uh,
and he also plays like was it Humana Healthcare
uh,
and the private equities,
Yeah.
and he talks about incentives and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
how they're buying up these mom and pop little places, and they're like, no, we don't want you to change the name. We want it to look like a mom and pop.
yeah. Yeah, but nobody's happy there. They push it to the brink,
They bleed it
yeah,
for everything it is.
yeah. And again, long term, it just doesn't work. It's just a lot of turnover. And I guess like everything, things change. The only thing that
It tends when you bleed things, they die.
yeah, it's just it's the truth. I mean, I'm no doctor or anything, but I heard that.
Yeah.
I read that somewhere before.
Yeah. I think we proved it with the first president.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man. And then you just decided I'm going to be a pediatrician, or
Yeah. A lot of it actually had to do with the fact that we were talking about ankylosing spondylitis before,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I had a lot of.
What is this disease, guys?
It's
For everybody out there who has no idea what you're talking about.
It's an arthritis condition that affects your spine, and ankylosing basically just means that the spine becomes sort of fused. And so instead of having like individual vertebrae that kind of move individually, you
get
have
a lot of bone spurs.
You have a bamboo spine. Everything moves like it's a unibody
Mm.
kind of thing. And so, but it's very painful.
Do they know what causes it?
It's an autoimmune kind of a condition.
So inflammation.
Yeah.
HLA-B27.
Yep.
That's what
Yeah.
they were like. You have this
Wh-
gene.
We're HLA-B27 brothers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
All right.
So you said that, kind of like going back to when you were a lot younger, you had
Mhm.
issues. Were those issues coming from your condition then, and you just didn't know exactly what it was, or?
My parents weren't that sophisticated, I guess, at the time, so they didn't really like take us to doctors and know what was what. We got some treatment from here or there, but we didn't really have specialists that were.
Were they diagnosing people with that in the 70s? And
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they were. But it shaped everything, because from like being physical and athletic or whatever that you couldn't do, but the same thing with work. Like you were saying, like, how did you decide? I kind of wanted to be in the surgical field,
Right.
but I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I'd be able to be standing over a table or standing all those hours and doing it with the way my back was. I didn't think I could be,
Yeah.
stamina.
I know, because my whole life it's been very unpredictable. When, I remember being 18 and having what was a flare up,
Yeah,
and just thinking like, oh, I must have hurt my back playing
right,
hockey or doing this. And,
right.
when I got diagnosed in 2018, it was
Mhm.
like, oh, wow, a lot of different things in my life
Yeah.
make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What I was going through at those times. And
Mm-hmm.
it really gets me in my hips. It really got me bad in my hips.
Yeah.
So I just lost like the ability to swivel on my
Mhm.
hips, kind of.
Yeah.
And then the lower back, you know, it's rough.
Yeah, it's the
It's
same.
rough.
The same for me. I mean, I've had 2 hip replacements. You
Damn.
know, as a result. You know, so that's why I do all this yoga stuff.
Well, so if you have ankylosing spondylitis and you don't treat it, that's when everything fuses, right? So
Yeah.
the fact that we go to yoga and we keep moving,
Yeah.
that helps, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've got to keep those body parts moving. Otherwise, the muscles atrophy. You get a lot more scar tissue. It's really important to not stop moving.
Yeah. I always feel like the heat really helps me.
Yeah.
In those hot classes, man. I walk out of there, I feel great.
Yeah. But they have, you know, back then they didn't really have a lot of treatments, and now the treatments are you know, pretty effective.
Yeah.
You know, so it's helped a lot of people. You know, that they call disease modifying kinds of treatments. You know, rather than just treating the pain, they sort of they minimize the progression of the disease.
Yeah. That inflammation, man.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was taking a biologic for a while. I had to give myself a shot right in my leg, and I was doing like Cosentyx, and it was real expensive. And like, you know, it's like, oh, each shot's going to be $1,400,
Right.
but you qualify for a program, so you're going to get it for free. And then I qualified for the program for 8 months, and then the 9th month, they're like, hey, is it working for you? Yes, it's working. Okay, well, that special program's over, so now you're going to have to pay that money out of pocket. I'm like,
Who has that kind of money?
yeah, I'm like, I'm good. So I stopped taking it. Kind of right around the time when I started going to yoga. So I'm not really on anything now.
So do you feel like it's progressed some more for you, or are you basically feeling the same?
I feel like, I mean, I was bad. I walking with a cane, crutches, everything I did aqua therapy. I did physical therapy.
Yeah.
It helped a little bit, but that's why when I started going to the yoga studio, that just, I mean, it completely changed my life. And for the 2.5 years that I was out of work, I think my mind gradually went to a pretty bad place.
Yeah.
So I really anticipated all of the physical benefit of yoga. You know, I could see that. I'd go for a month. I could start to see results physically. And then I was really surprised by the mental benefits of yoga, which, I mean, they're like right here on the scale. They go hand in hand with me. It's so much good for my body, but it's so good for my mind too. So
yeah, there's no question that it is. I've enjoyed it, and it is kind of a community too, and it's good. That's how, like, I met you guys, and so anything you do that helps you to feel connected, elevates your spirits, and
yeah,
I guess that has some immune benefits itself too, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I think so.
I think, well, I know for me that one of the reasons I go some Sunday mornings is to have coffee afterward.
Yeah.
Or at least,
Yeah.
I mean, even if you guys aren't there and it doesn't happen, it was still potential, like socializing with, you know.
Yeah.
With I think one of the things we're trying to put together is, you know, I think, and again, I get this from listening to thousands of hours of Jordan talk about, you know, life isn't about being happy, it's about finding meaning.
Yeah.
You know, and if your life is about the work that you do and stuff like that, then you have meaning, and then that can lead to. But if you're constantly just chasing the whole hedonistic happiness gene, it's that scroll of doom kind of thing. And so, we're one of the reasons we started this podcast was to form a crew, you know, a group of guys, and think we're starting to pick up some momentum where we're going to have some events and stuff that we're going to go and do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hoping that you can join for the sailing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're aiming for something close to this,
Okay.
where the water is not really moving that much, but Roger would say, well, I hope not this, because it's a sailing. It's not, we're going to be using the motor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like my friend used to say, he's passed away now too, but he was a great sailor, and you'd say, I'll look up at the trees and say, what do you think, Stu? Is it we're gonna go out there? He goes, no, there's less wind than squirrel farts.
Yep. But Roger's already said we're not going to go out he's not going to go out on a boat with a bunch of guys that don't know how to sail.
Yeah.
In an even marginally or possibly rough.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be any fun for him.
Yeah.
He can't sail the boat by himself. It's too big.
What kind of boat does he have?
I'm not going to even try to answer that because I haven't been on it yet myself, so I don't know. I think I'm going on it tomorrow, though.
Okay.
Yeah, is that what you guys are doing tomorrow?
Yeah. You guys were invited too, but you said you got to work.
Yeah, I'm going to be at work tomorrow morning.
I just saw this picture that you might know this picture. This is a picture my brother-in-law took from the top of the St. George in Brooklyn Heights.
If I could see it.
The reason it's up there is because she's little and she's running through the sprinklers on the top of the St. George. But in the background is the Twin Towers.
Okay. The Twin Towers.
So I blew it up and sent
nice.
a copy of it to my brother-in-law.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
When you get closer to it, you'll have to check it out.
Right.
This is really impressive tonight.
Yeah.
I can't believe how smooth the water is.
When do you usually go out?
Right about now.
Yeah.
I like to go out in the golden hour
Yeah.
because the sky is usually the prettiest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if there is clouds, they're all lit up.
Yeah. Nice.
And so then you can even see the different cloud deck levels
Mm-hmm.
and things like that.
Yeah. Cool.
So we got a pretty good. Well, I want to say you're pretty good at this. I mean, you sat right down and started talking. It was a good narrative. I mean, you're pretty good.
Well,
you seem like a pro.
Well, that's it. I kind of shot my load though. That's it, man. That's all I got.
Well, that's like we talked all about
Well, we're in your 20s. We haven't even got to the interesting part yet.
Crap. He's got more questions.
we talked about the timeline and stuff, but now what kind of guy are you? What do you do to wind down? What do you do for fun?
Does anybody need a break before we go into this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could use the restroom.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, why don't we do
All
a
right.
break?
But you had a question that you started before the break.
Oh, I was just gonna
I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab something.
ask Jim what you said. You do some stuff for fun. You said not a whole lot, but yeah. What are your hobbies? What are you into?
Well, so a lot of like what you already know, like I like physical activity.
Okay.
And I will say that there's nothing, I don't know what it would be like not to be able to get out there and move. And so whenever I'm tense, I need to move.
Yeah.
And given that in general, everybody has stressors in their life. If I can't move in order to relieve some of that stress, it's a problem. So I used to run. I don't run as much anymore. On occasion, I would bike. For a long time, I did jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
Which was a lot of fun.
Like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you still like to do jiu-jitsu?
I would like to, but I really, for fear of injury, I stopped. So now, so I picked up yoga. Not that I didn't do yoga before, but now that's more of what I do. So doing physical, and I've been rucking. So I got a little like a
Explain rucking for all those listening who don't have a clue.
so it's basically hiking or walking with a weight on your back.
Yeah.
And you can get like a rucksack, which you can like throw a bunch of stuff in, or a kind of like a rucksack that basically just holds plates.
Or your school book bag.
Or your school book bag these days, right?
Yeah.
And then you just walk. And it really is a very, very good exercise without putting a lot of strain on your joints. And even with my back the way it is, and maybe your back the way it is, it's balanced so well if you get a good pack, that you really, the only thing that hurts is like the straps on the shoulder.
Right.
The rest of it is really fine. But it's a great exercise. So sometimes I will do that, and I might go for, like, I haven't done it in a while now, but like I might walk for an hour and a half or something.
Nice.
And you work up a little bit of a sweat, and you keep up a certain pace to make it.
How fast do you like to go?
Well, I'm going to say that probably in the neighborhood of around like 13-ish to 14-ish minute miles, like roughly that pace, for walking.
So what is that? 4 or 5 miles an hour?
Yeah, I guess something a little less than that. Yeah. But so I don't know if you're familiar with, like, a lot of people. Have you ever heard of Zone 2 training? Have you ever heard that term before?
Yeah.
Getting into zone 2.
Yeah, getting into Zone 2. So, like, I don't know a lot about the other zones, but as far as Zone 2 training goes, there's so if you maintain roughly 80% of your max heart rate, which roughly might equal your age minus they have these little formulas, minus 80 or whatever, and it's. So you do that and you maintain that for about 30 to 40 minutes. And it, in theory, help, the mitochondria, or the little powerhouses in your cells. In theory, it helps them to function more efficiently, as well as make maybe your muscle cells that you're using make more of them. And so your metabolism is improved. Your muscle strength is also improved, particularly, I guess, in the muscles you're using to walk, but it's also a cardio thing. And so anything that benefits your musculoskeletal system also benefits your brain too. And so rucking, I found, is just a way to get that exercise without killing myself. And it's kind of pleasant. You walk around, and if you happen to be, and you're outdoors, which is always good. And if you happen to be in a place that's pleasant to walk or whatever, then, it's just a relaxing thing to do while you're exercising.
Yep.
So
Zone 2 improves your production of ATP.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, which is what the mitochondria use. So that's kind of why I like to do that. But I don't do a lot of other stuff. Like, I'll read, I'll do that. I'll listen to podcasts. I'll listen to podcasts while I walk if I want,
What's your favorite podcast?
I kind of, like, lately I sent you one of the things that I don't know if you ever got a chance to look at it, Closer to the Truth. Remember that I sent?
I'm going to go back through our thread.
Yeah, you go back. Yeah.
And
it's a guy who, he is I think he's a neuroscientist, if I'm not mistaken, but he's always he asks more questions than you get answers out of the podcast, but just the conversation is very interesting.
Sounds like Huberman.
Yeah. But I guess he's a Jewish guy who is really kind of like, almost like unsure. He's agnostic. But he's sort of desperately looking to understand if there is a God. And he talks to people of all faiths and sort of gets their ideas on how they view what they believe in.
Okay.
And why. In addition to scientists and the scientific perspective on the universe and on a creator, and just some very, very interesting discussions that he has. And again, he doesn't have answers for this, but the people that he interviews are top level people in their field. And so it's just nice to hear these people and their perspectives. You can choose to believe what you want, but it really is a very interesting, I like it anyway. It's an interesting discussion that he has. So,
Well, he talks to a lot of different people, right?
a lot of different people from all walks of life.
And they don't always agree with him.
They mostly do not agree with.
That sounds like education
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
worthwhile conversation.
yeah. And
Absolutely.
he critiques what's the, like, you'll have a discussion, it'll be a back and forth, and then he'll give you his sort of thoughts on, like, this is what I believe. And it's clear what he believes. He's not putting it out there as dogma and that, this is what he just will put it out there. That's what he believes. So you know where everything is coming from. And so I think I find it very interesting to listen to. So if you have a chance, you might enjoy it.
I mean,
What was it again?
Closer to the Truth. I think I had sent that to you at some point anyway.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah. I
think
sent
you
you
did.
one episode of whatever, just,
Yeah, I'll look it up in our thread.
Yeah,
I don't delete threads for that exact reason.
yeah. Yeah.
I have like years of. I think I have like 5 or 10 gigs worth of
of text messages
on
saved
my
up.
phone. Yeah. Well, you don't have time to get to everything, and then life happens,
Right.
right? And there's actual tools in the messaging app to go
Mhm.
back and look at the links that people have shared with you,
Yeah.
so you can see them all in one place. So you don't have to go through
Yeah.
all of the text to remember where it's at.
So what is this thing?
So if you go into, I'll do it real time so that I can give you the correct information.
Yeah, I've used that. I really use that, and then I use like being able to search your messages with someone. Like that's invaluable.
So you're in our text, right? And then you tap on the image at the top,
Yeah.
and then you go to info.
Yeah.
Oh no, you don't even go to info. As soon as you tap on that, you'll see notes and links and images.
Right. I did know that, but I didn't think to use it in that capacity. Okay.
And the links one is the one that we're talking about right now. It shows the
yeah.
links that we both have shared.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We're a couple weeks out from iOS 18. Be here.
That
before
is
you
going to
know
be
it.
big, and the biggest thing that you guys I'm going to want to. So I'm hoping to have a podcast that is a larger group than this, and I'm actually just thinking of this, but I've been wanting to share. People have problems with passwords,
Yeah.
and I probably have mastered passwords better than 95% of people, and so I feel obligated to kind of share that ability with most people. They're struggling with passwords. Passwords are a pain in the ass, and so they do stupid shit with their passwords. And I think there's a new app coming out on the iPhone that's just for passwords.
Oh, wow.
And but the hard part about it is going to be, how does it work? And so I kind of like to have like
Well, how do you undo years of being a jackass with your passwords?
one account at a time.
One account at a time.
With this app.
Yeah.
So when you go into it, you use the app and you learn how to get the app to help you to reset your password. And if your password is less than 26 characters, it's not good enough.
Yikes.
I don't remember any of my passwords. My app remembers them for me.
I have
Now,
to
that
learn
might be
this.
different at work, but this is personal that I'm talking about. Like
Yeah.
the one that you should definitely have a good password on and a dual authentication on is your personal email, because all of your bank accounts can be reset if they take over your personal email. They can take over your life if they take over your personal email account.
Well, okay.
So I should help you fix that from that look on your face.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I
out
had
there,
trouble
man.
just remembering max heart rate, like 20 minus your age, and 80% of that is yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. You're entering into, in the next 10 years, the demographic where you are the highest desirable to be scammed.
Yeah.
because they figure in your
Yeah.
that your cognitive abilities are lowered and you have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they're going to literally be looking for you. And
Yeah.
and there's, they can get, see, what people don't realize is that when they hack Target, which they did,
Mm-hmm.
well, I haven't had an account there in 20 years. Well, you had an account there, and
Yeah.
now they have your information.
Right.
And if you haven't changed your email and it's still AOL, now
Yeah.
they know your email. And if your email password is 8 characters and it hasn't changed in 10 years, they're going to figure it out.
Right.
And then they know the big 5 banks, and all they have to do is go to all 5 of those banks and reset your password.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't even have to know that you have an account at those banks.
Yeah.
They just go there and they just throw mud at the wall.
Right.
And all of a sudden they've got $86,000 out of one of your accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And then they disappear. You and I sat and did that at Rise Up. You went through all of that with me.
Has it been helpful?
Well, I haven't done everything, but I did the major ones, my email, my banking.
You mean you changed you were changing your...
I set up 2-factor authentication.
Uh-huh.
I used the kind of like where he's saying, I used the Apple password that it's not like I'm picking a word.
Right. It's just all these crazy letters, numbers, and characters.
It's got dashes in it, and it's auto-picked for you.
But
you're never going to remember it. And that's
Right.
okay.
it is, I deal with multiple people a day. So at work, everybody puts in their PTO on an app. We have an app called Workday.
Yeah.
70% of people cannot remember their password, cannot log in to their Workday account.
Yeah.
We have to call and get it reset. But a lot of people don't pay any mind to that
The
kind of stuff.
majority of people don't.
Yeah.
So there's huge incentives for scammers to just throw mud at the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't take these guys a whole lot of work to make $20,000 in a day.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty good money.
Yeah.
And they might not even be here in the country.
I highly doubt it.
So there's nobody to go after.
Do you
Right.
guys get the random text sometimes that is
Hello?
your package cannot be delivered,
All the time.
Or-
USB? Yeah.
Hey, do I have the right? Do I have the right? I can't remember your phone number. Just random things that people would normally go, "Who is this?" And just responding is bad. So anytime you get those, just hit report
Yeah.
spam.
Yeah. That's what I do.
They try to get you to talk for a minute, and while you're talking, they're sampling your voice. So then they could call your wife, and you'd be like,
Yeah.
"Hi, honey, it's me, Jim. I need you to wire me $500. The car broke down or something."
Yeah.
And they get a lot of people that
Yeah.
way.
I had to train my father on back when he had a cell phone with Sprint.
Right.
Sprint kept calling him to pay his cell phone bill ahead of time. And I think it was actually legitimate.
Mhm.
But you don't do that.
Right.
You don't do that.
Well,
And I
see-
said, Dad, say, no thanks, no more than that,
Yeah.
for that reason, because this is
Yeah.
even 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because he might accidentally give some piece of information away. And then if you feel like you need to double check on it, then you look up Sprint's phone number
Mm-hmm.
and you call them. And now you're okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
even know that that's okay anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing stories about SIM card swap. You know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
Yes.
And so when you go in and you get a new iPhone at the Apple store, they do a SIM card swap
Mhm.
for you. Well, I've heard that people that work at AT&T and stuff like that are getting payoffs
Mhm.
of $5,000 to $10,000, and so
Yeah.
they're doing SIM swaps
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
with groups of phones.
Yeah.
And so you'll be sitting in Greece on your phone, and all of a sudden, it'll tell you that your phone isn't connected anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know how to protect against a SIM swap. But,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the best protection that you have against the SIM swap is to have dual authentication set up
Right.
to where they actually have to
reach out and
well, they have
yeah.
to reset up the biometrics in order to get into your
Mm-hmm.
password app.
yeah.
So they even know that. See, people. Oh, I have Google tracking all of my passwords for me. Idiot thing to do, because if you do a SIM swap, now they have all of your passwords.
Yeah.
If you do it on an app like this app actually requires your biometrics and another. Well, Apple has set it up so that if they're far enough away, let's say in Thailand, it's going to be like, no, you're not in Thailand.
Yeah.
People, you'd never been to Thailand. We're not going to let them change your Apple ID password.
Right.
And people have had that happen to them
Yeah.
too.
But I've heard.
But it's our obligation to ourselves to master this. It's
Yeah.
not optional. People think it's freaking optional.
No, I
and
know.
it's not.
I need to be better at that for sure. The other thing I've heard, about is like sometimes they'll call you and it'll say, I don't know, is this Zach? And you'll say yes, and then they'll hang up. And now they've recorded your voice saying yes, and use that as an affirmative to send you or do or whatever they were trying to do to begin with, because now they have a verbal yes from you that they've recorded.
You know what I say instead? Who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
This
one.
isn't phone etiquette, you moron. You called me. You tell me who
Right.
you are before
Right.
you start asking me
Right.
questions.
They call me at work all the time.
I'm
and
very
like,
disagreeable on the phone.
they're like, you're overdue 3 months on your power bill. We're going to be forced to shut down the power tonight. I'm like, okay, go ahead, man. Like,
Yeah.
come on. And they got like a accent like they're from somewhere else. I'm like, BG&E doesn't do that at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night. It's just,
Well, it's people in my mom's demographic. Like she's like I take care of her cell phone because of this, right? So if somebody were to call her about her cell phone, the only thing that she's going to say is my son takes care of that.
Yeah.
yeah.
She's not going to be all worried. She's not going to say anything because she doesn't know anything,
Yeah.
And she's got dementia. Doesn't always remember what's going on, depending on her blood sugar and
Yeah.
general what she's eaten that day or whatnot. If she's had too many sweets, which is often, she might not be remembering too well.
I watched this girl on YouTube. She has a Tesla channel. Somebody, and I would know not to do it, but apparently she didn't. She had one video where her license plate was in it. She missed it. So then she started getting tickets. She's in Georgia. She was getting tickets in New York City. So someone took her license plate number and made a fake plate and put it on a different car.
Oh my gosh.
It's just like you can't be putting your license plate on.
That's just too funny because you could be driving around in a neighborhood and just randomly pick somebody. That's like a hate mail kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I hate you.
Targeted.
They targeted her.
Yeah.
That's really strange.
I used to switch license plates on cars, but just from purely a fun perspective. Like when we were in high school, just like.
I think the statute of limitations is up.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're
That was
okay.
a long time ago. I'm all right. But yeah, just to cause a little mayhem, I'd probably drive around for at least a few days before I realized I had the wrong license plate on.
I know I would too. I'm
Yeah.
oblivious to that stuff sometimes.
So, rucksack. What else?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Rucksack, some weight, a little bit of weights, just a little.
Am I going to get you out biking?
I would like to do that too. Yeah, I would like to do that. I have an old bike.
Do the wheels go round and round?
Last I checked.
Okay, then we'll be good. We'll have to get Roger and you and maybe a couple other people together.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Eastern Shore has some pretty good flat trails if you're into flat trails, and
I usually go over on that one.
the Cross Island Trail.
Yeah, I've been on that one with Roger a couple of times. More than a couple of times now,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It's a nice one.
Have you thought about maybe keeping your bike at work?
I don't have any place to put it, but yeah, I mean, I guess I could. But you know what? My day and in the wintertime, it's dark when I'm done. Now I probably could, but at the end of the day, I'm almost like I'm ready. I'm kind of
Have you ever wanted to go for a bike ride in the middle of the day when you take your lunch?
That's called pipe dreaming.
Okay. You don't get lunch, okay.
Yeah, you're not getting a lunch like that.
Yeah, that doesn't really happen. That would be a dream come true. And then you have to be able to shower somewhere if you're working up a sweat, right? And I don't have one of those either.
That's one thing.
Limitation.
Heath is really good at that. Like when it's Heath's
At
lunch hour, like
Oh, I thought you were going
it's
to say
his-
he's really good at showering.
Well, no, I mean he has like on his calendar Tuesday at 9:00. He's going to yoga, and work doesn't bother him. Work would bother me,
Yeah.
but you don't let it bother you. You do a good job of that.
For years, I would eat lunch at my desk,
Yeah.
and I just realized I was never ever getting anything for that. Never even getting like, oh, well, that's great that you're putting in that time at, it's just like the 80-20 rule at work. 20% of the people are doing 80% of the work.
Yeah.
So when I'm working, I'm always like committed to the work.
Yeah.
And so it's been proven that you can get, if you were to take a bike ride when you come back, you'll probably get more work done in the
productive,
rest of the afternoon than you would if you didn't take the bike ride.
I don't doubt it. Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Right. And so it's actually good for the company as well as for yourself. But we want you to come back.
Yes.
And it's 1:45.
Yeah.
And you expressed the desire to be done about now, so we should probably be done. But I hope you come back and be on the pod again.
This is
It was
enjoyable.
definitely great having Henry Hill on the podcast.
I'm going to get myself a T-shirt. Well, that's
Yeah,
good.
it was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, you're good at it. You're a natural at this.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I just like talking to you guys. That makes it easy.
How's the chair? We're working out the chair system. We're still working on the. It's probably hard on your ass. It's been hard on mine.
I have. I don't know. I've been into the conversation so much. I'm not even really. I don't.
Not fatigued.
I have not thought about my ass the whole time.
All right,
I've been-
well,
All right. That makes two of us.
Three.
So yeah,
All right.
Well, Jim, it's been
I
great.
got.
Yep.
it's
Thanks.
been
Thank
glad
you.
being here. I'm
really,
glad.
really glad we got time synced up and
Yeah.
managed to do this. We'll do it again.
We had our virgin run.
There's the name of the podcast.